Good afternoon, everyone out there on the interwebs. If you haven't been here before, my name is Jared, and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. So what we are doing in today's video is going to be a transmission fluid drain and fill on my 2016 Kia Cadenza SXL. So this vehicle uses the A6 family of transmissions developed by Kia. So the contents of this video are going to be applicable to basically anything Kia has made in the last 10 years. One of the major exceptions being the brand new Kia K5 GT. It uses I think it's an 8-speed automatic dual wet clutch transmission and actually uses gear oil instead of transmission fluid. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, as I've mentioned before, you want to check for your fill plug before you actually look for your drain plug, because if you can't fill things up, you don't need to pull a drain. What you see right there, the black plastic hexagon with the line coming out of the side, that is the fill plug on this A6 transmission. And if you're wondering why is it so hard to see, it's because it is buried under the air intake. We zoom out a little bit here. That's the air intake. So in order to get to that, the air intake is going to have to come off. But now that we have verified our fill plug, let's go ahead and look for the drain plug. And turns out the drain plug is pretty easily accessible. It's right there. It's about in line with the fill plug. It's just on the bottom, and it's under, or it's inside of this skid shield. However, we're probably still going to have to take this off, because in order to level out the transmission fluid, there is a check bolt on the... Alright guys, after some figuring, I have dropped that skid plate. And what you got to do is, you see this rail, got my hands on, you have to not only drop any bolt that's along that rail or any screw. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, which actually holds the rail in to the subframe. You've got another rail, same thing. It starts over there, and it runs back this way. Goes to there. Please excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. So this is the rail. It's internal to the skid plate. As you can see, it does not come out. It drops with the plate. But once you get out any of the... It's a mixture of bolts and screws, and then there's one screw-in push pin up front. One thing I forgot to mention about the bolts there, they are 10 millimeter, not 8 millimeter, they're 10. Once you get those out, you can drop this. And once you can drop this, then your access to the transmission drain is really good. And, alright guys, there it is. That is the fluid check port right there. And I was thrown for a loop because I thought it was on the side of the engine facing the driver's wheel. It's not. It's facing forward towards the grill. So we've got that figured out. This is the check port, and I already listed out the fill and the drain. Now I've gone ahead and I replaced elevator up. Not replaced, but I removed the air intake. That is 2 10 millimeter bolts. And now you can see we've got oodles of access to our fill port right there. It's got a square bit in it if you want to do square, and it also has the hex outside, which is what I will be doing. So now that I've got everything sourced and located, I'm going to go ahead, like I said, clean out under the vehicle, get it level, and we're going to get started with the draining and the filling. Okay, so I went ahead, I did some fitting, and our drain bolt over yonder, just a moment, there we go. Now the flashlight can't run away. It is a 24 millimeter. I'm going to go after it with a wrench because it's a kind of a thin bolt, and I'm afraid a socket would just jump right off. Switch hands. Yeah, I'm going to have to put the camera down to loosen this guy up, so I'll be right back. Okay, as you can see, there's a line there now. After a modest amount of skin knuckles, we're good. It is now finger tight, so I'm going to slide the pan into position, and we will proceed with the draining. The transmission drains. I wanted to take a look at this bolt. I want to show you some stuff I'm a little worried about. So this is our bolt, high bolt, and you can see there is a bunch of junk on the end of it. Now what they did is they made the end of this bolt magnetic, so the schmutz that you see all over the end of this is bits of metal and other crap from the clutch packs inside the transmission. And that concerns me because that's not a small sheen of schmutz. That's a pretty good amount of schmutz. So if you see something like this, you need to pay attention to your transmission. So as you know, Kia has the 10-year, stop it camera. Alright, I'm going to put this back down. Bad camera. Kia has a 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty on their vehicles. I'm the second owner, so I don't get the full benefits of that warranty. It's already expired for me because they cut it in half. Point I'm driving at, though, is this vehicle only has around 60,000 miles on it. So Kia says you shouldn't have to touch this fluid for 100,000 miles. And, I mean, there's your result. So transmission fluids have gotten better over the years, but it's always a good thing to bear in mind is that manufacturers are desperate to win awards and try to lower the cost of ownership on their vehicles by skimping and extending service intervals on stuff that really shouldn't be extended, like transmissions. Give you an example. My wife's Transit Connect, which I did a transmission drain and fill on earlier today, they basically say you don't have to touch the fluid for 100,000 miles. And I say balderdash. The 6F35 is a great transmission if you change the fluid every 30,000 miles. If you don't, it'll die on you. The internal transmission filter clogs, and then once it's clogged, the transmission dies, and you have to split it in half to get that filter changed. It is non-serviceable. So, moral of the story, change your fluids, people. Maybe you do a 30,000 interval, maybe you do a 60,000 interval, which is kind of what I'm doing. But they need to be changed. So let's see if we can get the schmutz off. Yeah, so I don't know if the light's going to catch it, but this is silvery because it's metallic in nature, has metal shavings in it. So we'll just get this clean as we can, and then we'll put the bolt back in once we're done draining. At this point, transmission's pretty much empty. I mean, I still got a tiny drip, but this will be a short segment. So I cleaned off the magnetic tip. That's how it's actually supposed to look. And I was looking in my pan, and I found this crush washer that is supposed to go, as you can see, it goes right there. So make sure that when you reinsert this guy, which, there we go, now you can see. When you reinsert this guy, put the crush washer back on. It's going to be needed. That functions as an O-ring. And if you put it back on and you crank it down appropriately and it still leaks, it could be the crush washer is completely crushed out and you're going to go need to source a new one. Normally your local auto parts store, the Dorman line, will have something for you. Final thoughts on putting the drain bolt back in. Make sure your crush washer's on, and when you go to snug it, snug. Not murderous intent tight. Okay, guys? You do that, something's going to strip out, or you're going to have a heck of a time trying to get the thing back off the next time you go to do service. So with our bottom done, we're going to move up to the top. Okay, so the bolt up top is a 22 millimeter. Bear in mind, it's plastic, so be nice to it. Now what I'm finding here is it's very, very loose. So you don't have to crank on it much at all. And that also means that when we go to put it back on, no need to go super crazy with it. All right, and there you go. This is our plastic fill bolt. And there is our fill tube. Right there. Very cool. So I'm going to go get the fluid. And we'll talk about that for a moment, and then we'll start to fill. Today's transmission dinosaur flavor is Aisin SP4 automatic transmission fluid. Now this is what I could find that definitively said it was engineered for Hyundai and Kia. And it also Genesis, but Genesis belongs to the parent company that holds Hyundai and Kia, so kind of 6 of one, half a dozen the other. If you can find a transmission oil at your local parts store that meets the SPF or SP4 specification, and they will stand behind their oil for your vehicle. So if the manufacturer says this is good for Kia, even if Kia doesn't recommend it, go for it. This was not cheap, but it's the one oil I could find that specifically said Hyundai and Kia. Aisin. All right. This transmission, now that it is dry, it's going to need at least 5 quarts of this before we can get things moving again. So I have over here, I bought 6 because you never know when you're going to need that spare. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to snag my funnel because I don't think I have the skills to do the funnelless pour into something that small. And we'll get this pour going. Okay guys, this is the check port cover. I use just a 3/8 drive, 3/8 extension. It'll fit in that square perfectly. And this is not threaded. It's just it's a turn lock. So you turn it 180 degrees and then poop, it pops right out. Now I took this out because as I've been filling here, I haven't been able to get in much fluid at a time before it starts burping and trying to come out. So I'm hoping that by popping this cap off that it'll pour in a little bit more smoothly. But since I took it off, I wanted you guys to get a quick explanation of how it comes off. So. Alright, so I put in 5 quarts of fluid. The spillage you see there is because if you don't pull the check port that's a little bit further down, when you go to fill this, it glugs really bad and it'll overflow your funnel and make a mess. So I figured that out, got the fluid in, but once I got around the 4.5 quart mark, I started getting overflow out of the check port, so I put that back in, put the rest of this in. The next step is to turn the engine on and let the transmission come up to temp, which is what we're doing now. When I put this plastic cap back on, I didn't even really make it tight. I just made it tight enough that it's not going to try to slide out on me because of where it is and what it does. Next step, you'll see that's the fluid I spilled. Kind of an oops. I will clean that up. We're taking a look to see if we're leaking out the drain plug, which is right there. Currently we're not. So now we wait. We're going to let the transmission come up to temp. Unfortunately, our only gauge on that is going to be the oil temperature or the coolant temperature. That's the only thing you see inside the car. If you have a OBD2 scanner, you can plug that in, and I'll show you where that port is. if you have one, you can, let's see here, should be behind the fuse panel. Yeah, right there. That's a standard OBD2 interface you can plug in right there. If your scanner is good enough, it will give you a transmission read, and you'll be good to go. All right, as we can see, it'll come in focus. There we go. Engine is up to temp. It's been that way for a couple minutes now, so we'll go ahead and cycle through the gears. So there's reverse. That wah you heard was the parking brake turning off. Neutral. Drive. Neutral. Reverse. Park. Run through it one more time. Reverse. Neutral. Drive. Everything feels pretty good. It is the next morning. I was unable to wrap this up yesterday, but I did finish the test drive and everything went great. But then I had to let the engine cool down, so I could not do the level check test, which is what we're doing now. Car's been idling about 10 minutes. Transmission temp, oil should be up to temp. I've gone ahead, I've got my drain pan in position, and what we're going to do really quick is we're going to take this air intake off so we can reach down under it and get to the check valve. So let's get that out of the way. Alright, plug is out, and now when we take a look with our flashlight, we see there is no fluid coming out. So level is actually a little bit low. So let me go get my last quart and my funnel, and I'll crack open the fill and we'll start adding. So I've got everything set up. As a reminder, the fill is a 22mm socket. Zoom in a little bit. And so I've got this funnel in there, got my fluid ready. So we're going to try to focus on the plug right there. And keep an eye on it. We're going to fill until we see stuff starting to come out. Okay, we're starting to get fluid to come out. We want it about, yeah, so now we're just sending it straight through. That's about where we want to be. Let me see if I can get this thing back in. You can see I got the plug back in, and you can also see that I did spill some fluid out. That's okay, because we had a good steady stream, which means the transmission is now at the correct level. And we can go ahead, shut the engine back off, and go ahead and button everything up. And this is a win, people. We have done it. Okay guys, as you can see, I have this belly plate back in, skid plate. General notes are that the longer bolts, they go up front along here, and your shorter bolts are going to go along here. One exception is this bolt here is a long bolt. Otherwise, that's it. So we are all back together. Only thing left is get the car off ramps and then start cleanup. And that's going to be it for this video. We have successfully done a drain and fill on the transmission of my 2016 Kia Cadenza. What we worked on today will be applicable to pretty much any Kia in the fleet from about 2010 until today. If you liked what you saw here, please like, share, and or subscribe. Anything you can do will help me grow this channel. Eventually I can hopefully get it monetized and then maybe earn enough money to buy a new camera, so I'm not using my smartphone anymore. Anyway, that's it for me today, guys. So until next time, later.